Okay, so getting back into our coverage over Black Panther, we do pick up with A Nation Under Our Feet, Book 3. Now, in Book 3, we actually pick up with Baba. Now, we met Baba at the first video we did for Black Panther, A Nation Under Our Feet. And he is a professor at one of the many universities in Wakanda. Now, with that being said, he was also a professor for one of the bad guys in this overarching storyline, which was T2. Now, T2 is trying to free Wakanda. That's what he says. But apparently, when it came to Baba, he did not believe that T2 was doing the right thing. Now, when a video got out of Black Panther talking to other country leaders, and they are basically dictators in their countries, and how they told Black Panther to kill off people to make his country fall in line, Baba began to believe in T2 even more and told T2 that he was doing the right thing, but going for it the wrong way, meaning that he was down with T2 trying to free Wakanda. But of course, in Book 2, he told us that he was not okay with T2 killing people as a way to free Wakanda. There must be a more peaceful way to actually finish that goal. And so with that, it's Baba kind of standing in the middle. Who should he work for, Black Panther or T2? Both men have done some bad things, but right now it's T2 who has done more bad things than Black Panther has. Now, the book does remind us that Shuri is alive again. Now remember, Shuri has been put in a stasis cube way before our coverage over Black Panther, A Nation Under Our Feet. Because remember, back in Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers, Thanos had basically put her in that stasis cube, so she was not dead nor alive. But with that being said though, she missed a lot of things happening in Wakanda. Now at the end of our last book, Black Panther and Eden were able to find a way to break her out of that stasis cube. But of course, when she did come back with powers, but also because she has been gone for a long period of time, well, she missed a lot. And so she's going around Wakanda to see how much Wakanda has changed, especially finding out that her mother is in a coma. Because remember, at the end of Book 1, Wakanda was attacked by some bomb terrorists. And of course, one of the bombs blew up right near Ramonda, the mother to Shuri. And so now Shuri is even more eager to finally stop the conflict in her country. Now, you do have Shuri and Black Panther meet up with their council. Now, remember, it's Shuri who's technically in charge of Wakanda. She was the queen because Black Panther did step down after a certain point, and Shuri was the sole leader of Wakanda. But when Shuri was put in that stasis cube, the role of leadership went back to Black Panther. But either way, you do have them right now meeting up with their council. Now, their council is trying to figure out how in the world should they handle T2, because T2 has caused so many different problems for Wakanda over the last couple books. But this is the moment you have Shuri tell them what she learned while being in stasis. Because remember, her mind was technically teleported into a different plane of existence known as the collective memory of Wakanda. Now with that, she met some kind of spirit that did not give its name to us, but either way, that spirit had basically taught Shuri the history of Wakanda. And with that, she tells her council, listen, T2 is like any other man almost. He's just trying to free his country. But the problem is, though, he doesn't know how to do it the right way except the wrong way. And that's been happening years and years in Wakanda's history. He's not the first and he will not be the last. But of course, he must learn the right way. Now, her council do not believe about having peace with T2. They believe they should do something to him because how much damage he caused to Wakanda. But it's Shuri telling them, listen, we can talk to him and maybe, just maybe, we can change his mind, even though we know as the readers that cannot happen. Now, we actually do pick up with T2 and Zenzi, who are right now in a FaceTime call with the Midnight Angels. Now remember, T2 and Zenzi are the two main bad guys of this book. with that being said though, these two characters are right now trying to free Wakanda by using an army from a different country that's right next to Wakanda, and that country is Nigandan. Now, here's the thing though, the Midnight Angels are basically the women from the Dora Milajes who used to protect T'Challa and work alongside him, have left his side and formed their own group called the Midnight Angels. Matter of fact, they have formed their own nation in Wakanda to protect the women in Wakanda, because we have learned over the last couple books, women have been attacked even more ever since the beginning of this overarching storyline. And so they have formed their own nation in Wakanda to protect the women of Wakanda. Now, with that being said, the Midnight Angels and T2 had agreed to work together as a way to free Wakanda. The problem is though, some of T2's men have begun the process of actually assaulting women in Wakanda, and that right there is a huge no-no, because the Midnight Angels, their main goal is to protect the women of Wakanda. And so right now you're telling them that, hey, T2, some of your men have begun the process of actually assaulting some of our women. That's not okay with us. Now, you do have T2 promise that he will handle it, but of course, to the ladies of the Midnight Angels, this begins the process of them no longer trusting T2 and Zinzi, because now they realize something could happen down the road. Now, we do pick up with the Midnight Angels having a conversation with one another. Now, their conversation is all about what to do with the Wild Dogs. Remember, the Wild Dogs are a group of soldiers that technically work for Black Panther. They stand by his side. Now, in our last video, Black Panther had basically sent out the Wild Dogs to go hunt down the Midnight Angels. The problem is, though, at the end of that video right there, the Midnight Angels were able to capture the Wild Dogs. And so right now the Wild Dogs are basically the Midnight Angels hostages. Now, with all that being said, some of the Midnight Angels want to go ahead and kill off the Wild Dogs, but the leader of the group does not want to do that, because she feels like if they do that, they are basically acting like Black Panther and T2 savages, and she does not want to have that label on this group at all. And so right now there's a huge conflict of what to do with the Wild Dogs. Kill them or don't kill them, or give them back. And that is a huge conversation piece right now for the Midnight Angels. Now, we do pick up with T2 and Zinzi right now talking to one another after having that meeting with the Midnight Angels in that FaceTime call. Now, with that being said though, you do have T2 as Zinzi. How did the Midnight Angels feel? Because remember, when it comes to Zinzi, she has the ability to feel other people's feelings. At the same time, she also has the ability to control their feelings sometimes. Now, with that being said, you do have Zinzi tell T2 and us that the Midnight Angels are beginning not to trust T2 at all, and that right there is very huge. Now, the T2, he does agree why the Midnight Angels might not trust him anymore because of his men, but at the same time, he's not worried about possibly losing their help, because remember, they have an entire army from Nigandan, the country right next to Wakanda. And that is the moment you have T2 and Zinzi go over to that country, to their army. And then you have Zinzi use her powers as a way to rile them up, to get them ready to attack Wakanda, to hopefully free Wakanda from the hold of T'Challa and his family. Now, we do pick up with the Midnight Angels once again, because remember, the Midnight Angels were deciding on what they should do when it comes down to the Wild Dogs. Well, we come to find out that they had decided to hand the Wild Dogs back over to T'Challa and his army. Now, they do this, but of course, they do play a video while they're doing it. In their video, they basically say that they are going to give the Wild Dogs back over to T'Challa to show that they are not savages like T'Challa and T2. On top of that right there, they also tell the people in Wakanda through this video that they have formed their own nation to protect the women and the people of Wakanda who want to break away from T'Challa and his family's rule. And so, of course, they do this, and this video is being played all over America. But of course, it's to make a point to show that they're not savages like Black Panther and also like T2 at all. Now, we actually do pick up with Anika. Now remember, Anika is one of the original Midnight Angels, which makes her one of the leaders of the Midnight Angels. But she was the one who really wanted to go ahead and kill off the wild dogs. But of course, her mother, her leader, did not want that to happen. And so with that being said, Anika runs into the forest after giving that powerful speech about how they will not be labeled like T'Challa and T2. They're not savages like that. But when she runs into the jungle, well, that is the moment she is greeted by Shuri. Now, this moment right here is actually huge because to the Midnight Angels, when they used to work for T'Challa and his family, the last thing they remembered is Shuri is gone, or she was gone. She was in that stasis cube, but in their mindset, she was dead, not alive. And so to see her here right now with her new powers, it's kind of like, yo, Shuri, you're back. The one we actually like. Not your brother, but you. Now, when we get into the second chapter of this book, we actually do pick up with Shuri talking to Anika. Now, Aya will come in later on, but at first she talks to Anika. Now, this conversation is actually very important because remember, the Midnight Angels have formed their own nation inside Wakanda, and that is huge. But in their nation, their goal is to protect the women and the people of Wakanda first. Now, with all that being said though, you do have Shuri tell Anika and Aya when she does show up that, hey, listen, right now T2 and Zenzi, their army is about to march towards us. They're about to attack Wakanda. Now with them about to attack Wakanda, this could possibly be another time where the main city of Wakanda could fall. Remember, the main city of Wakanda is the Golden City. It has fallen multiple times. The country has been hit multiple times by Namor, Black Thanos, Doctor Doom. The list goes on and on. But either way though, you do have Shuri say, listen, we want to defend ourselves from T2 and his army, but our main goal right now is to attack you guys. We're going to attack you guys, burn your lands, make sure you starve or whatever, and so that you guys could fall back in line with us. Or you can go ahead and do that. Now, to the Midnight Angels, they're thinking, well, we have formed an alliance with T2 and his army. But then you have Shuri tell them, listen, T2 is not going to help you at all. If you guys get attacked, he will ignore your attack and keep going on to take over Wakanda. And once he has Wakanda, then he will take over your lands. So you have two options. You can help us protect your people, protect your country, or watch how your new nation and your old nation both burn by the hand of T2 and his army. And the Midnight Angels now must make a decision on what they should do. Help T'Challa and Shuri or help out T2 and Zenzi and their army. Now getting back over to Black Panther and Shuri, who are right now having another meeting with their council. You do have Black Panther and Shuri talking about how that army of Nyganon is powerful, but they could most likely stop them. The only person who could cause a change in the war is Zenzi, because she does have the ability to control other people's feelings. And so with that, if she does get into the city, she could cause more people who are still on T'Challa's side to change sides and join their army to attack Wakanda, to apparently free Wakanda. And so you have Shuri and Black Panther both say they need some kind of counter to actually stop her. Getting back over to the Midnight Angels, you have them having another discussion about what they should do. Should they work with T'Challa and Shuri, or should they work with T2 and Zenzi? Now, of course, remember, like I said earlier, when it came to the Midnight Angels, when they were the Dora Milajes, they used to fight along T'Challa and Shuri. But when Shuri was queen of Wakanda, the Midnight Angels loved her more than T'Challa. They actually care for her. They believe that Shuri was actually a better queen than T'Challa was a king, and she loved her country even more. And so with that being said, you have the Midnight Angels realize if Shuri is back, then maybe, just maybe, Wakanda does have a chance to finally heal. But of course, that means the Midnight Angels must give up their goals and actually work with T'Challa once again to save their country from the army attack of T2 and Zenzi. Now, we actually do pick up with Black Panther meeting up with Baba. Remember, Baba is that professor at one of the many universities in Wakanda, but also he was professor for T2 a long time ago. Now, the reason why these two guys are meeting with one another is because remember that T'Challa and Shuri both said they need some kind of counter as a way to stop Zenzi and her ability to control people's feelings. But with that being said though, before you have Black Panther actually ask for the help of Baba, they do have a conversation with one another. Now their conversation is more about if T'Challa or T2 is the better choice for Wakanda. Now for Baba, he believes that evil is evil. There is no lesser evil. That right now, both men are evil in their own ways. And so right now, technically, there is no better choice. Now, you have T'Challa say, well, listen, that guy, T2, has committed murder across the board. How dare you come to me and tell me that I'm not better than him? I have fought against gods and other aliens from different planets to protect not just our country, but the world. But again, for Baba, evil is still evil because Black Panther, back in Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers, he had members of the Black Order being held hostage in his own little prison. On top of that, there has been times where he had to torture people. And so with that, it's Baba saying, but you torture people. You held people hostages. That is not a lesser evil. That is still evil. And so you may think you're doing the right thing, but of course you're not. But that is the moment you have Black Panther say, listen, which choice is better to actually help Wakanda? And you have Baba realize that T'Challa needs his help to fight against Zenzi, but at the same time, you have Baba ask T'Challa, how is Ramonda, the mother of Shuri? And the reason why you have Baba ask that question is because we get reminded that Baba and Ramonda were old-time friends, but Baba got word that Ramonda was badly injured back at the end of book 1 by one of the bombs going off near her. Now apparently her injuries have gotten worse to the point where she may be paralyzed from the waist down. And so with that being said, it's T'Challa telling this teacher, that's your friend in there. Your old student, T2, did that to her. You can't tell me that I am not the lesser evil. You cannot tell me that you may think that T2 could possibly be the better choice than me when your friend is right now laying in a hospital bed, possibly fighting for her life. And even when she survives, she might not be able to walk again. And so you have Baba realize, okay, I'm going to help you. What do you need me to do? And that we'll see in the next chapter of this video. But we have to jump back over to T2 and Zenzi. The reason why, because we actually pick up with T2 having another FaceTime call with the Midnight Angels. And this is the moment we come to find out the Midnight Angels are no longer going to work with T2 at all, because with Shuri being back, the queen they actually love and want to work with, they're going to work with her more. Also on top of that, let's not forget that some of T2's men have began the process of actually assaulting women, which is something the Midnight Angels cannot stand because they stand for women's rights. And so with that being said, it's the Midnight Angels moving away from T2 and Zenzi and going back to work for T'Challa and Shuri to protect Wakanda from T2 and Zenzi. But right at the end of the second chapter, we do see both Black Panther and Shuri getting ready for the big battle because they know from this point on, it's war. It's war to protect Wakanda. They must do all they can to stop T2, to stop Zenzi, to stop their army from taking over Wakanda because Wakanda must stand as the way it is. But Wakanda must get better. But the way T2 is going for it is the wrong way. And so it's Black Panther and Shuri getting ready for the big battle and finally wrapping up a nation under our feet. Now, when we get into the third chapter of this book, we see the war has begun. Wakanda against Nygandan's army. T'Challa versus T2, Shuri versus Zenzi. The war is here. The war has begun. Now, with the war actually happening, the book does show us that this war is not going to take place just in one location in Wakanda. No, it's going to take place in different locations in Wakanda. But either way, you do have this war going on between both sides. But just not T'Challa and Shuri. You have the Wild Dogs too. You have a lot of different groups trying to fight against the forces of Zenzi and T2. But let's not forget about Baba though, because apparently Baba is supposed to play a very important role for this war. And honestly, it's a great role for him and the ability he has to possibly change the tide for this war. And the reason why I say that is because when it comes to Baba, he usually gives powerful speeches because he is a professor at one of the many universities in Wakanda, but that part's not important. It's the ability he has to give powerful speeches, to make people think more than they usually do about different topics. And so with that, it's Baba talking to the army that belongs to T2 and Zenzi, but also talking to people who could possibly help protect Wakanda, like the Midnight Angels. Now, remember, when it comes to Nygandan's army, yes, most of those men are from Nygandan, but some of those men used to live in Wakanda. And so right now they're attacking their own old country. And it's Baba talking to them and telling them, do you think what you're doing is correct? Do you think that what you're doing is going to change things? Do you think that this man T2 could possibly make things better for Wakanda? But look at what he has done to your country so far. He has killed people left and right because in his mindset, that's the way to go. Wakanda needs to be different. Wakanda can be different, but it takes everybody in Wakanda to change this country. And so you actually have some of the men who are working for T2 and Zenzi begin the process of actually changing sides. They realize that Baba is correct. The Midnight Angels are beginning to realize they should join sides with T'Challa and Shuri. And so it seems like the army of T2 and Zenzi could basically fall apart here and now. Now, you do have T2 tell his other men who are still on his side to go ahead and kill off the people who he basically now sees as traitors. On top of that, you do have Zenzi begin the process of using her powers to control the feelings of the different people in their armies to make sure that they stay on their side. And so yes, their army has been cut down to a certain size, but their army is still strong and still standing, which means that right now T'Challa and Shuri must begin the next plan if they plan on actually stopping T2 and Shuri, because their army is still attacking Wakanda. Their army is still coming through the areas to hopefully kill T'Challa and Shuri. But of course now they must begin Plan C, and Plan C is to protect the Golden City. And the reason why to protect the Golden City is because it has fallen so many times throughout the years. Now, what the Wild Dogs do, they basically retreat. Now, when they retreat, it makes T2 and his army follow, because T2 is after for blood right now, because he's eager to kill anyone that stands in his way. T'Challa, Shuri, their army, the Midnight Angels, whoever stands in his way, he wants to go ahead and kill them off. And so with that being said, it is him right now basically following after the wild dogs to make sure that they are killed. But the wild dogs did the right thing. They ran away from the Golden City to protect the Golden City, so that Black Panther, T'Challa, Shuri, and the rest of their army can have a fight away from the Golden City to make sure that nothing happens to it. But with that, this is the final fight between Black Panther and T2. And their fight does go on for a good period of time. But of course, at the end of this fight scene, it is T'Challa, the one, being able to actually finally win. And that right there is huge. He's able to defeat him. Now, T2 thinks that when it comes to defeat, T'Challa is going to kill him. But T'Challa says, no, I'm not going to kill you. I am basically going to take you away because we have more needs from you that need to be handled right now. And so you have Eden basically teleport Black Panther and T2 somewhere else, and the war is finally over for now though, because Zenzi, she was not captured. She got away, which means that possibly she could play a role down the road for later stories. And to make sure that everything is going to get better, you actually have Shuri call a meeting with the Midnight Angels, because Shuri does believe the Midnight Angels could be something great to have in Wakanda, and they could be great if they work together with Shuri and T'Challa. And so right now they're having a meeting in the possibility of the Midnight Angels being folded back into the army of the T'Challa and Shuri Wakanda army. Now, getting into the 4th chapter of the book, the 4th chapter is more of like the aftermath of the big war. But of course, it's the big meeting between Black Panther, Shuri, Baba, and the Midnight Angels. Because remember, the Midnight Angels could possibly be folded back into the army of Wakanda thanks to Shuri being alive again. But they still have a problem with T'Challa, the Black Panther. Now, you do have both sides kind of give their reasons on why things should change or how things should change and why each side is wrong, but their side is correct. What I mean is that for T'Challa, with him, he's kind of like, listen, you guys did a great thing protecting women, helping them, bringing crime down in Wakanda. But at the same time, you also did some horrible things. You killed, you murdered. Now, of course, I can basically have those laws you broke pardoned. But the problem is, though, you still committed murder. And that is wrong. That is something we don't do. Now, at the same time, you have the Midnight Angels coming back at him and saying, well, you have also left us behind multiple times. And also you have kept secrets from the people, but also your own sister as well. So how can we trust you? And she's right, because if you think back to Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers, Shuri had no idea that Black Panther was meeting up with Namor and the rest of the Illuminati. And Namor had flooded Wakanda. And so it was even worse when Namor was hiding out in Wakanda after what he did in an earlier story before that one. And so you have the Midnight Angels kind of saying, how can we trust you? You hid lies from us, secrets from us. And Namor, somebody who should have been killed by you for what he did to us, you let him live and you worked with him. And then you kept hostages here in Wakanda, the Black Order. And when they broke out, they caused so many problems in Wakanda. How can we trust you? Now, on top of that right there, to the Midnight Angels, they believe that T'Challa never had to suffer at all because he was king, because his dad was king. He never had to suffer. Even after he had lost his mom, not Shuri's mom, he had never suffered. Now you do have Baba call a break in the meeting and have both sides say to come back tomorrow to continue this meeting. Now, you actually have Baba meet up with Anika. Now, this meeting is actually very important because to Anika, like I said earlier, she believes T'Challa never had suffered in his life because he had the status of a king. Even though he did lose his parents, his suffering ended there because, again, he was king. But then you have Baba point out how much that T'Challa has lost over the years. He had lost his parents. He has lost his friends. He had lost the woman he loved, Storm. He has watched his country burn and flooded so many times throughout the years under his rule. And you believe he never had any kind of suffering at all? And so with that being said, you have Baba tell her, you may think that because he's a king, he never has to go through hard times, but he has gone through his own version of hard times. Again, he lost his parents, he lost his friends, he lost his brother, he lost his wife. He has lost so many different things over the years, and he almost lost his sister, and he almost lost his stepmother. You can never tell someone they never had suffered at all because you may think that, but in reality, it shows you don't know what they have actually gone through, or you're not putting yourself in their shoes. And so with that, it's Anika realizing how wrong she has been about T'Challa throughout this whole storyline. Now, we do see a meeting going on between T'Challa and Shuri. Now, this meeting is actually very important. And the reason why I say that is because you have T'Challa telling Shuri that he is no longer fit to be king. Now, you have Shuri ask her brother, what does it mean to be a king? Now, remember, when it comes to Black Panther, T'Challa, he has the ability to actually talk to the dead. And so in past comics, before this story came out, he had the ability to talk to the kings that had came before him, even though they had all died. And so when he had talked to them, they had told him that he is no longer a good king. And the reason why, because he would never kill Namor. Now, we'll see that as we continue our coverage over Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers. But as we go through those storylines right there, you will see why the kings of the past believe that T'Challa is not a good king anymore, because he will not kill Namor when Black Panther has so many different times the ability to kill Namor to finally bring peace to Wakanda for what Namor did back in Avengers versus X-Men. But either way, though, you do have Shuri say, listen, the kings are the past. We are the present, meaning that we can listen to their words and to get inspired by their words or take advice. But again, you are king now. It's your kingdom. It's your rule, meaning that make it your own. They're there to kind of guide you or kind of give advice, and that is it. But the final decision comes down to you. Now, that is the moment you have Black Panther tell Shuri or ask Shuri, what should they do now in this new beginning for Wakanda? Then we get one page to finally show us that the Midnight Angels are going to be folded back into Wakanda's army to work alongside with T'Challa and Shuri, which means the Midnight Angels finally realize that yes, they were doing the right thing, but at the same time, they should have talked to their king to help their king to finally fix Wakanda, to make Wakanda better than it was in its current state. Now, there are two more things we need to talk about. One is T'Challa and Shuri meeting up with Ramonda. Remember, Ramonda is the mother to Shuri, but the stepmother to T'Challa. They had different mothers, but same father. But T'Challa looks at her as his own biological mother. Either way, though, you do have T'Challa talk to her, and they talk about how he looks different. He seems different. She feels how he has changed. And once in his life, he is actually free, meaning that this could be a brave new beginning for T'Challa in Wakanda. And hopefully he can lead Wakanda in a better direction this time after this story. But he has one more thing he needs to do. And that one more thing is to meet up with Storm. So he has Eden. Again, Eden has the ability to actually teleport anywhere in the universe or teleport someone else anywhere in the universe. You have Eden actually teleport T'Challa to go visit, of course, Storm. And that right there is our cliffhanger. It's T'Challa meeting up with Storm, kind of giving away the idea that possibly these two characters could get back together. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But I do hope you enjoyed today's comic book video. Later, guys.